Welcome back, everyone. We have four talks in this session. Our first talk is by Mathilde Chevallay, and she'll talk about should I stay or should I go, behavioral adjustments of fur seals related to foraging success.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming and thanks for the introduction. So my talk is pre-recorded, but I will be happy at the end to take any questions. So thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Mathilde. Thanks for attending my talk. So today I'm here to present one paper we published about how fur seals adjust their foraging behavior according to their prey capture success. So why is it important to understand the decision-making processes in top predators? So understanding foraging strategies and decision-making processes of predators help to understand how they might respond to a change in prey availability to maximize their energy input. Optimal foraging theory predicts that predators should adopt hunting strategies that allow them to maximize their net energy intake in order to have more energy allocated to reproduction and survival. Therefore, predators should maximize acquisition and assimilation of prey and minimize the cost linked with the search, the pursuit, and the capture of prey. In most environments, prey are distributed in patches where the density of prey is higher than the average prey density in the environment. When a predator is foraging within a prey patch, prey abundance will decrease with the time spent in the patch. Therefore, predators must decide when it is better to leave a patch of prey to search for a more profitable one in order to maximize their energy inputs. In this work, we focused on two close species of fur seals, the Antarctic fur seals and the northern fur seals. During reproduction, females alternate between bouts of foraging at sea to replenish their reserves and visit the shore to suckle their pups. The efficiency of females during their foraging trip will condition the growth rate and survival of their pups, so females are really constrained to be the most efficient as possible during their trip at sea, making them a perfect model to study optimal foraging theory. But why did we choose to compare these two species? We studied two populations, the Antarctic fur seal population of Kerguelen Islands, small subantarctic islands in the Indian sector of the Southern Ocean, and the northern fur seals population of St. Paul Island in the Bering Sea. Antarctic fur seals on Kerguelen Islands are oceanic divers feeding on small mesopelagic prey, while northern fur seal population of the Bering Sea shows both oceanic divers and neritic divers feeding on large demersal species such as gadids. Therefore, these two species display a cross pattern of similarities and differences in foraging preferences, making these two species interesting to study in the context of decision-making processes. So the aim of this study was to investigate the decision-making processes during foraging in these two close fur seal species at different time scales. We made the hypothesis that the two species of fur seals adjust their foraging behavior according to their past prey capture experiences, but differently depending on the time scales and the strategy adopted. So data were collected on 20 female Antarctic fur seals from Kerguelen Islands and 20 female northern fur seals from St. Paul Island during their lactating period. Females were all equipped with tags that recorded tri-axial acceleration, depth, and GPS coordinates, and tags were deployed during one single foraging trip at sea during approximately 1 week. So the aim of this study was to compare the foraging behavior of females before and during a low prey capture rate period at different timescales to see how they respond to a decrease of prey capture success. So to do so, we first needed to estimate the prey capture success. So we used the accelerometer data to identify prey capture attempts, and we computed the prey capture rate, so the number of prey capture attempts per unit of time as a proxy of prey capture success. And we did this at 3 different time scales: multi-dive scale, night scale, and trip scale. So at the multi-dive scale, we compared the behavior of seals during a series of dives where the capture rate was low to the previous series of dives where the capture rate was higher. At the night scale, we looked at the influence of mean capture rate during one night on the behavior during the following day or night. And at the trip scale, we looked at the effect of the period of the trip on the decision-making processes. In terms of behavior, we looked at the dive behavior, so dive depth, duration, time spent at the bottom, and transit rates. The time activity budget, so the proportion of time spent diving, resting, fast transiting, or slow transiting during a certain period of time, and the horizontal distance traveled. So to test the hypothesis that each strategies, so Antarctic fur seals, oceanic northern fur seals, and neritic northern fur seal, would respond differently to a decrease of prey capture success, we compared the behavioral adjustment at the 3 time scales between each strategy using mixed models. So what did we find? So we first studied how fur seals adjusted their vertical and horizontal movements at the multi-dive scale. We hypothesized that oceanic northern fur seals and Antarctic fur seals that forage on pelagic prey would respond to a decrease in capture rate by exploring other parts of the water column, while neritic northern fur seals that forage on benthic prey would rather increase their time spent foraging. As we predicted, both Antarctic fur seals and oceanic northern fur seals responded to a decrease in prey capture rate by increasing their dive depth, dive duration, and time spent at the bottom during low capture rate periods. So this suggests that they were exploring other parts of the water column, as it was already observed, for example, for king penguins and macaroni penguins, that adjust their foraging depth when the prey capture rate during the previous dives was low. On the opposite, for neritic northern fur seals that forage in the neritic habitats, we would expect to observe an adjustment of time spent foraging or in transit rate to increase chance to find prey. So we did observe an increase in dive duration, but only by 10%, and other dive parameters such as transit rates were not adjusted. So this suggests that neritic northern fur seal do not really respond to a decrease in prey capture rate at the multi-dive scale. So what could explain the differences between neritic and oceanic divers? So we know that the main difference between neritic and oceanic divers is the targeted prey. Neritic divers mostly feed on big demersal prey such as the walleye pollock, while oceanic divers mostly feed on small mesopelagic prey such as myctophids. These two prey types likely require contrasted hunting tactics. Demersal prey are generally larger than mesopelagic prey, and larger prey are generally more reactive, so they likely require longer pursuit and handling times. Therefore, it is likely that prey targeted by neritic divers require more energy and time to capture than prey targeted by oceanic divers, which could influence their decision-making processes. It is also known that neritic northern fur seals exceed their aerobic dive limits, while the oceanic divers usually dive below their aerobic dive limits. So therefore, it is likely that oceanic divers have a greater flexibility to adjust their dive behavior during low capture rate periods compared to neritic northern fur seals. So now, if we look at behavioral adjustment at the night scale, which means how the capture success during a foraging night influenced the seal behavior during the following day or night, as opposed to the multi-dive scale, we did observe similarities between species and strategies in decision-making processes. So on that plot, you see the capture rate during a night on the y-axis and the distance traveled during the following day on the y-axis, and the color represents the different strategies. So what we can see on this plot is that when the capture rate during a night was low, seals travel more distance during the following day. Moreover, they did not adjust their time activity budget during the following day or their dive behavior during the following foraging night, when the capture success during a night was low. So this result suggests that at the night scale, seals mainly adjusted their horizontal movement to search for a more rewarding patch of prey. So finally, when we look at the trip scale, we showed that neritic northern fur seals display different behavior based on prey capture rate through the trip, while we did not observe any effects of the period of the trip on oceanic northern fur seals and Antarctic fur seals. So here you have, for neritic northern fur seals only, the dive duration and the dive depth during low capture rate period in dark gray and during the previous high capture rate period in light gray, on the left of the plot at the beginning of the trip and on the right at the end of the trip. So what we can see is that at the beginning of the trip, no adjustment of dive behavior was highlighted during low capture rate periods. However, as the trip progresses, we observed a gradual decrease in dive depth and duration during low capture rate periods. The modification in decision-making processes as the time spent away from their pups increase likely reflect the lower efficiency of neritic northern fur seals compared to oceanic ones, which consequently might try to reduce time searching for prey in poor foraging areas and to increase their foraging effort in areas of high prey density to satisfy a maximum energy gain before returning to land to feed their pups. So to summarize, both species adjusted their foraging behavior according to prey encounter rates at different time scales. We observed similarities of behavior of oceanic northern fur seals and Antarctic fur seals, while neritic northern fur seals display contrasted decision-making processes. We made the hypothesis that these differences could be explained by differences in targeted prey, foraging areas, and strategies between neritic and oceanic divers. The lack of behavioral adjustments at the multi-dive scale by neritic northern fur seal could make this seal less efficient as foraging. However, we could not test this hypothesis here, so further studies must be conducted to assess the influence of decision to live or stay in the patch on individual fitness on the longer term. The fact that we observed similarities in decision-making processes between two species that forage on the same type of prey suggests that prey type and behavior may play an important role in foraging decisions of top marine predators, even if it's not taken into account in theoretical models. However, for the moment, fine-scale information on the behavior and characteristics of prey targeted by fur seals is lacking, so further deployments of, for example, micro cameras could be used to investigate the effect of prey characteristics on fine-scale foraging decision of seals, and that could be useful to increase our knowledge on the processes behind decision-making in top predators. So thank you for listening, and if you have any question, feel free to ask, and you can also send me an email if you want. Thank you.
So I guess it's the end of the talk. Thank you, Mathilda.
Thank you.
We are still waiting for questions from the YouTube chat, but I guess in the meantime I can ask something. I'm wondering if you've looked at how these differences in behavioral decisions to forage affect the pups themselves. Do you know anything about this, or is this something that you're planning to do?
So yes, I didn't do it myself, but my supervisor did it during her PhD, and there is no difference between pup survival and growth between the two strategies. But it was on a small sample size, and it might be interesting to do it again to be sure that there is nothing. But what we know is that neritic northern fur seals are less efficient as forage. So yeah, maybe on the long term, it might have some impact on the pups.
There's a question from Ellis Jean. She asks, she says that thank you for this interesting talk. Do these seals change their targeted prey during low prey encounter period?
Actually, we don't know yet because for the moment we just know with the accelerometer when the seal is trying to capture a prey, but we do not have any information on the actual prey with the tags we deployed. So the objective is to deploy maybe some micro cameras to have real-time information on the prey. To test this hypothesis. But yeah, maybe they might change their targeted prey, but we don't know yet.
Thank you. That sounds like a very good experiment to add cameras to the seals. Still waiting for more questions. I was also wondering, so you talk about the behavioral adjustments that they do at the night scale, right? Based on how much they do on the day, they change how much they move on the next day, right? So are there any differences in this between the neritic and the oceanic divers?
No. For at the night scale, we did not highlight any differences between the strategies. So for both strategies, they just move longer distances when they did not find a lot of prey during the previous night.
There's some congratulatory emojis on the YouTube chat, so people enjoyed your talk.
Thank you.
And I also had a question on you mentioned something about the aerobic dive limit.
Yeah.
So this is a physiological limit that the seals have, is it? So they can't spend beyond a certain amount of time diving, and that differs between species.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
yeah. I think that's it. We have time for maybe one more question. We can I'm just waiting if there's anything in the chat. Or I have one more. Maybe I ask my question while I wait. Do you know if the behavioral differences between how different they are in the behaviors that they do between the time that they dive, based on say how much food they get in or how much food the pups need? Do they change the time that they spend on land? Do you think that's a driver?
Yeah. They depending on they during the reproduction period, so they just give birth to their pups, and then the female will spend 2 days on land to feed the pups, and then 7 days approximately at sea to take reserves. And as the pup is growing, the trips will be longer, so the female can stay longer at sea because the pups do not require to be fed as often as before.
Thank you. Alice says thank you for answering her question. I think that is the time that we have, so I'll thank you once again for giving a talk. If anyone else has questions for Mathilde, please, you can find her in the Discord channel and you can ask your questions and you can continue the discussion.